Before you check out any component on an air conditioning system, you're going to want to make sure that you're doing it safely. So when we check out the capacitor, you're going to want to turn off and de-energize the power to the outdoor unit. Most of the outdoor units are going to have a disconnect box such as this. This is a more modern one. You can just pull the disconnect out, it de-energizes the power. Older systems may have a fuse disconnect or a circuit breaker. Very old homes may not even have this disconnect, in which case you're going to have to go in and locate the circuit breaker in the circuit breaker panel to de-energize the power. The second part about being safe when checking out your capacitor is to ensure that the power is in fact de-energized to the unit. I've had systems where another technician hot-wired the disconnect box, and even though it was pulled out, there was still power to the unit. So you take your voltmeter, put it on your volts AC, check the incoming power. There's no power coming in, so we now know it's safe to remove our capacitor to check it out. Now you can check the capacitor with it in place, but what you do have to do is remove the wires that go to it. I'm going to show you this later, but a dual capacitor has 3 different terminals to connect to. There's a C, an F, and a Herm terminal, and that stands for common, fan, and hermetic, which is the compressor. Don't get confused. C does not stand for compressor. Always use your needle nose pliers. If you jiggle the wires with your fingers and try and pull them off on an older system, you may break this connection. So always use your needle nose pliers. Pull them off one at a time, making sure that you note where each wire goes. You can look on the top of that, and I'd take a notepad and write down the color of wires and which terminal it goes to, C, F, or the Herm terminal. So once those wires are removed, then it's time to check out the capacitor. Well, I removed the capacitor so that we can see how this is done just a little bit easier. First thing you want to do is to verify what value this capacitor is. This is a dual capacitor, and it's a 40 plus 5 MFD, which stands for microfarad. So the 40 is for the compressor side, and the 5 is for the fan motor, outdoor fan motor side. So the first thing you do to check a capacitor is to make sure that you have a meter that can measure capacitance. This happens to be a field piece meter, and I highly recommend this. It's designed for HVAC technicians, and as you can see, the selector knob is set to MFD, which stands for microfarads. You're going to place one of your leads on the common terminal of the capacitor, and then you're going to find the Herm terminal and check out the value of the Herm, or the compressor side, and you can see that the meter is ramping up, and it's a 40 microfarad capacitor, and this one checks out at 40.1 microfarads. We are less than 10% off, so we know that side is good. You then shift your lead over to the fan terminal from common to fan, and the fan side is 5 microfarads, and this reads at 5.3. That's still below the 10% mark. 5.5 would be the 10%, but it is creeping up there. This would be something you'd want to keep an eye on if you did an annual maintenance and record it. If it starts to climb to 5.5, it's time to replace that capacitor. That is the checkout procedure for the capacitor. And then you reverse the procedure to put everything back together. The proper terminals get connected to the proper wires, and then you re-energize the power.